The enduring message of Flight 93 is hope. It's a sad story, but it's a story of bravery and a story of selflessness.
When you think about Flight 93, it makes us all think about us being a better person.
When you understand the full story, it's about facing your fears.
My sister, Honor Elizabeth Lania, was on United Flight 93. What would people notice about Lizzie, I think, is just her positivity.
My oldest brother, Louis Joseph Nacky II, was aboard Flight 93. He's the kind of guy that you would call friend.
I'm the brother-in-law of Leroy Homer Jr., and he was the co-pilot on Flight 93. He just come back from the desert campaigns in the military and survived all of that, only to have to do battle in his backyard and perish.
United 93, verify your flight level 350. United 93, Cleveland. United 93, if you're here, Cleveland Center, ident, please.
We're going to have a joint session of Congress. That day we had John Howard, who was the Prime Minister of Australia, the Supreme Court, you had the President's Cabinet, you had the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and a big number of people from the Diplomatic Corps. So you had basically all the government of the United States in one room.
As I walked into the Capitol Hill police, before I could ever get to the House chamber, were running down the hallways, yelling at the height of their voices, "Get out of the Capitol, there's a plane, it's on the way, it could hit the Capitol."
Everyone was upset, and it was an emotional period and a period of uncertainty. That's the biggest thing, uncertainty.
We are sitting ducks here. We have 5,000 people that work in this Capitol. We have interns and pages and visitors, and we're talking about the joint session, and I can't get a hold of the Senate, can't get a hold of the Vice President, so I just decided on a unilateral basis we're closing down.
I think all of us recognized at that point that America was under attack. And I think our hearts were shaken, our minds were shaken, our spirit was shaken.
I went to the House floor to shut down the Congress, and when that happened, I had my two security guys grabbed me and said, "Yeah, we're getting out of here." I said, "What happened?" I said, "Well, there's a fourth plane coming for the Capitol."
I was on the phone with my dad, and we're both just wondering, just afraid and scared to death, as Americans, as to what was happening to our country, and we were just waiting for the next shoe to drop. Little did I know the shoe would drop in our backyard.
Somerset County Station 627, large aircraft down. Very safe. Could be related to what's going on in the country right now. I'm sure it is.
As firefighters, we're trained to save property, to save lives. We're trained to help people. There we couldn't do anything. We couldn't help anybody. We couldn't save anybody.
There were just about 3,000 lives lost that day. But the story of Flight 93 is so unique because there was an element of choice.
I think their whole motivation is just that they just wanted to go home and have dinner with their families. The love of their families carried them on to do probably one of the bravest acts that's going to be recorded in history. Giving their lives so other people can live.
The passengers and crew were armed with knowledge. And because of that, they were able to make a decision to let fate play out or to actively take a role. And, they did. And because of that, I lost my sister. But because of that, I think our nation gained something. They saved people. They saved people in D.C.
But I oftentimes wonder how many of them sit there and say, "You know what? I was in the Capitol that day. I was in D.C. that day." We owe them a little more. They owe them a little more.
They were American heroes. There was never a question about that. They were thought of as people who probably saved thousands of lives here in Washington, D.C.
In my mind, if those passengers hadn't forced the plane down by breaking through to the cockpit, I and many other people from the Capitol might not be here today.
I know what I owe, and for a lot of members of Congress, we probably owe our lives to those people.
Would we be sitting here today raising money to build the White House or the U.S. Capitol instead of the Flight 93 National Memorial?
These heroes who don't realize that they're heroes, you know, there's no ticker tape parade, there's no recognition of it, but they saved, you know, 3-4 times the lives that was on that plane, and in particular, our leaders.
Congress and the President acted very quickly. It was just a little over a year after the crash of Flight 93 that they created this place as a national memorial. What was a former strip mine was now turned into a memorial landscape, taking what was once a very scarred landscape and turning it into a place of healing, a place where visitors could come and pay tribute to the passengers and crew of Flight 93. We're already seeing visitors, mostly middle schoolers, who don't have a direct connection to that day. And they come to the site and they don't have the same intimate feelings we do about it, or the same personal connection.
New York and the Pentagon and Flight 93 are all linked as one. You know what I mean? So you can't tell one story without telling the story of all three.
It's like putting up a giant statue or a monument to a very important individual without a plaque. You know, there's no sense of value to what is put here without the explanation, without the ability to understand what does this damaged soil mean to us, what this plastic, what does that wall of heroes mean? Who are these people?
The only way that we can ensure that story will be told is by completing this memorial. And there's still work to be done. And I think somewhere along the way, that was lost. And we need to remind people that there's still work to be done. And then we need to create this amazing place where people can go to learn.
This is a national memorial. It's also for the country. And it's important that people see this and that they learn what these people did and why. I think just as Americans, it's important for all of us.
I think we owe it to the families, but we owe it to these heroes. And we owe it to our children and grandchildren so that they know that all the heroes were not just in Washington, all the heroes were not just in New York. Some of the heroes were on a plane, Flight 93, that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and that they gave their lives so that thousands of others' lives could be spared.
They gave their lives so we can continue to live our lives like it's September 10th, 2001. And I think it's our job, our responsibility to make sure that they are never forgotten, they are always cherished, and they are always remembered.
And there's millions of us now that can stand there and shake our hand and say, yes. But it was they who did it. So I just ask that, you know, people recognize them and give them their due as heroes.
Out of 3 sites, it's the only one that remains to be funded. And it's such a unique story that needs to be told. And in my mind, it's about time.